In this video I'm going to be talking to you about the Pure Astrology cards. Hi, I'm Alison, an astrologer in Vancouver, Canada. I've been doing astrology many years. I teach and I run classes and lecture around the world, and astrology is my passion and I want to share it with you. If you're new here, welcome, and do consider subscribing and share my videos with anyone who would be interested. My passion is to help aspiring astrologers learn how to read charts quickly and effectively. I also run courses and classes via Skype and in Vancouver. So there are many ways that you can learn astrology, and of course you can read books or you can take a couple of lessons. Perhaps when you're starting out, maybe you only have one or two books, and that's fine. And then you may come across something interesting called astrology reading cards or astrology cards, and there are several different types of decks. I have covered a couple of other ones in previous videos, but this time I'm actually going to be talking to you about the Pure Astrology Reading Cards. The stars and planets have always inspired a sense of wonder. Pure astrology is the study of the patterns and relationships of the planets and elements at the time of your birth. Be prepared to take a deep dive into your soul. Very nice. And in the spirit of full disclosure, these reading cards were given to me, were sent to me by Barbara from pureastrology.ca. So I'll give the details of their website as well. You can check these out further at pureastrology.ca for information on the cards and how to use them. So that was quite nice, so just so you know. So let's have a look at these cards. You get a stack of cards, they come shrink wrapped, and we have cards for I just want to sort them out. We have cards for the signs. We then have cards for the planets. And we have cards for the houses. And then there are cards for certain cards for aspects. That's right. Just a moment. Let me get this sorted out. Cards for the elements. I'm going to go over these particularly separately for you. Cards for the modes, and then there's a moon card. Why is that in here? So there are three main sections to these cards. You have the cards for the signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini. Then you have the cards for the actual planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and so on. I will go through a few of these later on. We then see that there are cards for the houses, each one numbered, for each of the different houses. So follow with me. So we've got signs, planets, houses to cover all that. They do consider some of the aspects. We'll go over that as well. Not all of them, and the quincunx is in there for some reason, but anyway. Interestingly, now they've got the breakdown here for the modes. We've got cardinal, fixed, and mutable, and on the back of each are the actual wordage. We're going to look at one or two of those closely. So the modes pertain to the signs, which are incredibly handy when you're learning astrology because they really are the basis for sign work. And then we have element cards, fire, earth, air, and water, again with the commentary on the back, so you can learn exactly what that means. They also provide an ascendant card with details about the ascendant. And they do provide a lunar node card with a north and south nodes on, interestingly enough. So these are now points in the chart. Included in this deck are 4 sample cards that give you a full clue about the actual component of the chart. So here we've got one for signs, and on the back there are the details about some keywords for the signs and dates. I'll look at that momentarily. There is also a card for the houses and a glossary on the back. Handy dandy that is. And a sample card for how to use the planetary cards and what they mean, like a big clue in summary, almost a summary card. You could perhaps even call it, though they're calling it a sample card. And then there is a sample card for the elements and mode, just giving a brief overview of how they work with some information further on the back. So we'll have a closer look at one of those later on in the video as well. So now we've just gone through a few of the cards, which is fine, and I now want to show you one way to actually use these cards in your astrology practice. So if you need to get three piles of cards going. You've got the signs, the planets, and the houses. And ideally you would shuffle each of the 3 piles. So you've got 3 piles in front of you: signs, houses, planets, sign, planet, house. And what we're going to do is going to do a shuffle on each one, cut, doesn't matter, and pull a card. So in this case I have pulled the 3rd house. I will put that as first on our list. We're pulling 3 cards, 1 from signs, 1 from houses, and 1 from planets. We're then going to take the planets, 10 cards. Of course we'll shuffle them, why wouldn't you? You're working with cards, you need to get the cards into your aura. And then we would choose a card right from the middle of the deck. And the card we're actually pulling for this will be Pluto. So I will put Pluto next to the 3rd card. So now we have 3rd house, Pluto. I'm now going to shuffle the signs, the 12 signs card, shuffle those through, because we're trying to be randomly learning a little bit about astrology. We're going to pick up a particular combination of sign, planet, and house and put some interpretation to it. So having shuffled these cards quite well, as well as one can, I will then cut them, take the card from the top, and we have Cancer. Put those to the side. So the 3 cards that we have pulled are actually, let me get them in order beautifully for you. We have the 3rd house, Pluto, and Cancer. And what we're going to do now is take those 3 components as an astrologer to practice our interpretations. Pluto was in Cancer many years ago, perhaps in the 20s and 30s. I'd have to double check that, and I'll definitely get the date for you there. So we would consider then that this perhaps is for someone who's slightly older, someone maybe who's in their 70s or 80s with Pluto in Cancer. So, and we're also considering the 3rd house. First of all, we would want to say, well, what are some keywords for the 3rd house? Handily on the back here it's written how you communicate, basic mental activity, childhood, siblings, neighbours, transportation, intellect, cleverness, and convincing others. But communication is huge for the 3rd house. Also a lot to do with your commute in this day and age. We would then look at the Pluto. What does this mean? Your passion, life and death, subconscious loss, upheaval, desire for power and control, intense renewal and rebirth. These are keywords for Pluto. Perhaps we would want to say transformation in your commute. What does that mean? You're missing the bus. Yes. And then in Cancer, this is actually the placement for the planet is in Pluto in Cancer in the 3rd house. Perhaps some keywords for Cancer they have here are healer, nurturer, intuitive, clingy, sensitive, pessimistic, emotional, tenacious, homebody, persuasive, sentimental, and loyal. So Pluto in Cancer in the 3rd, something to do with what are we going to talk about? It's difficult to come off the top of my head. However, we want to say that Cancer is a sign of containment. It is a sign where you want to be secure, where you are slightly possessive about things, where you like to have some kind of security in what you're doing. It can be related to family, and it's also to do with what you actually care about. So typically in this case, which is a difficult combination perhaps, for Pluto in the 3rd house in Cancer, I would want to go with, because I just pulled this and we're trying to get something together, that perhaps you want to transform your commute in some way so it's more comfortable for you. Now this could go in any way. Perhaps you're catching a train to get to work, perhaps you're going on a bus, perhaps you're doing a carpool with the people next door. Maybe it's not working for you, but when Pluto is there, you're going to want to transform what you're doing to improve it so it fits better with who you are. So that perhaps would be some example of how you could interpret on a high level 3rd house Pluto and Cancer just from pulling 3 cards from this deck. And I have a bonus idea about using these cards. So they have handily included, so a bonus way for you to use these charts is to actually look at some of the aspects that are combinations that go through there. So the aspect that I've actually chosen here today is actually going to be the sextile. This is the 60-degree aspect, and it's to do with natural talents, latent talents, things and skills for you that you have. I've also chosen 2 planetary cards, which I did actually pick at random. So we've got Neptune and Pluto, and this is quite an interesting combination in itself because Neptune was sextile Pluto for many years. It's in my chart. This aspect will be in many of you who are watching here today, it'll be in your natal chart, and it's one of those aspects that lingered for over 10 years. So there are lots of people who have this aspect. It's generational because the outer moving planets move so slowly, but this occurred during the period where Pluto was actually in Scorpio and actually was closer to the Earth than Neptune. It came within Neptune's orbit and it was moving faster there, and that's why it was able to keep the sextile to Neptune going for so many years, and that's why this particular aspect is probably in more charts than anything else of those who are living today. So this is an interesting aspect. But anyhow, what we are going to do, we're going to say, well, we've got this. We will say that we have the Neptune, because you always take the faster moving planet first. Neptune is sextiling Pluto. Typically it will be applying to the sextile or separating from the Pluto, and you would want to pull some kind of interpretation of that. So our Neptune keywords, what they're providing are spirit, your psychic receptivity, how convenient is that, a natural talent with a passion. Perhaps we would want to say your psychic receptivity is a natural talent for yours, the way you're communicating, and it will become a passion. It may even become life and death. And if you pull this combination, if you were doing a general reading for someone sitting in front of you, you would want to say to them, pay attention to your instincts. If you have a feeling of deja vu, listen to it. This is important because you're pulling this aspect today in this reading that you're doing for your client, and therefore it's pertinent to the reading. It just so happens that this was the one that I chose, but if you're dealing with a client face to face and they don't have it in their natal chart, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you pulled it on the day, the energy is for today, for your client sitting in front of you, and that's what you're going to do the reading for. So that would be another way that you could use these astrology cards as ways to bring a information and during of an aspect by bringing two planetary energies together, in this case Pluto and Neptune, through the sextile. And you can pull get your client to pull two planet cards from your planet deck, choose their own aspect. It's up to them to choose because the cards will speak to them, and then you can do the reading for them. So that's another great way of using these cards and learning more about astrology. Pure Astrology cards, a great way to learn astrology. I recommend them. I've put the link below if you want to make a purchase. I'm Alison Price. Thank you so much for watching. Have a prosperous day. I'll see you next time. I also like to share with you what do astrologers do all day, but you may have noticed earlier on in the video it was raining very much in Vancouver. Vancouver is a city where it can rain a lot. This was one of the days where I really wasn't keen to go out so much, and you can see quite clearly it's a little bit grey, a little bit overcast, and definitely the rain was coming down day and night.